On today's episode of the Launchpad podcast, we are talking about none other than the Christian Wood trade and what the Rockets could do at 26. And finally, if the Rockets will be interested in some trade up scenarios. So don't go anywhere. We have a great show for y'all today on the Launchpad podcast.
Houston, Roger, we copy and we're standing by for your TV.
They throw it up. Oh, there goes Jalen Green. Humans can't fly. Rebound picked up by Green, who's back in. Plays it ahead of more. Back to Green. Oh, and in time for Thanksgiving. But there's plenty of yams to go around for everyone.
Welcome into an emergency episode of the Launchpad podcast, coming to y'all a little bit earlier than we normally do. I'm sure by now most of y'all have heard the news that Christian Wood has been traded, so that's what we're going to be getting into today. Of course, you can follow me at Don Knock. You can follow the pod at Clutch City CR. If you go into the description of the Twitter page, you can find the YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast links. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Paulo Alves. Paulo, go ahead and tell the people where they can find your stuff.
Yeah, y'all can find me on Twitter at Paulo Alves NBA. That's PAULOALVES NBA. Everything I do from podcasts like this one to the live shows on Twitter Spaces to, well, not anymore slander of Christian Wood. Will find itself linked down there.
And today we are joined for our emergency episode by friend of the show, Itamar, straight from Israel. How are you doing, Itamar? What time of day is it over there? And tell the people where they can find your stuff.
Right now it's 7 p.m. So typically the time you guys record the typical podcast. You can find me at Itamar_17_10 on Twitter. And on Apollo Houston, I have been starting to write a lot of articles there. So where this pod actually used to be. So Apollo Houston and Itamar_17_10.
Perfect. So as previously mentioned, today's podcast is going to be very specific about the Christian Wood trade. That trade, just for any of y'all that happen to be living under a rock for the last 12 hours, the Rockets traded Christian Wood to the Dallas Mavericks for Boban Marjanovic, Sterling Brown, Rockets legend, Trey Burke, and we'll also go with Rockets legend Marquise Chris. The Rockets also got the 26th overall pick in this year's draft. So, Paulo, go ahead and start us out. What do you think about this trade? How did you react? And give us a breakdown of like the first hour of following the trade.
I mean, my first reaction is finally. I mean, it's not the best trade value-wise. I mean, none of us are actual front office executives, so we don't know what people were willing to give up for Christian Wood. But I think most people expected it to be a little bit better than pick 26. We knew that they didn't want pick 26 last deadline, or they didn't want the late pick in the first round this year, last deadline. So it's interesting that they were okay taking it this time. That should probably speak to the market of Christian Wood. But to me, that's not even the most exciting part. To me, the most exciting part is Şengün is now guaranteed to be your starting center unless something crazy happens, but I doubt we'll be playing a 26-year-old over him anyways. So that's, first of all, biggest takeaway. Thank God for that. We'll finally get to see what Şengün truly is without it being on a really small role off the bench. And then, other than that, it's just, I was tweeting about it, live tweeting about it, and all I can think about is so much of our offense was tailored around Christian Wood. He was Silas's favorite guy. And you could tell by the way the team played that we tailored him a lot. I mean, he's not a player good enough to demand the type of touches that he was getting. And besides the point, I mean, how many times did we see Christian Wood set a screen, slip instantly into a post-up, and you're watching and you're seeing Christian Wood on Jalen Green on Steven Adams in the perimeter, which should be the easiest bucket of all time. And you have Christian Wood on Dylan Brooks. And the offense was designed to feed Christian Wood in the post every single time. That I can barely remember any time that he slipped and didn't slip right into a post-up. Which means that, well, either Jalen passes him the ball or Jalen's driving into a clock lane. We're not going to see that anymore. Thank God for that. Sengun sets hard screens. That's already a huge upgrade for me. And then, how many times were we insanely frustrated because Christian Wood gets the rebound and pushes the ball up the floor himself and goes right into a turnover or right into a dumb shot? It's like, ah, that's not going to happen anymore either, I don't think. I mean, Christian Wood in specific guaranteed it's not going to happen, but even if it's Sengun, I would trust Sengun to bring the ball up the floor a lot better than I would Christian Wood, just because the passing, the IQ is there. He's gonna feed if there's a guy open in transition. He's gonna make the right decisions. Not like Christian Wood, who, if there's a window, he's gonna go for a score. If there's not, he's gonna go into an ISO. So that being gone is also something that makes me really happy. And then the other thing is, I was so tired of Christian Wood ISOs from the perimeter. Be that ending in step back threes, or him trying to drive and being denied and settling for a dumb mid range shot, or him being off balance and trying the floater that he hit at a pretty consistent rate, but that's not what you want your offense to be. This guy's a 26-year-old. Why is he playing like he's prime KD, or trying to play like he's prime KD? So mostly, my moral of the story is it's addition by subtraction. Getting the 26th pick is nice. Not getting any salary past this year, it's pretty nice as well. But most importantly, it lets us focus. This is now clearly Jalen Green's team, and that makes me really happy. And it lets us focus on the youth. He was a big black hole offensively, and getting rid of that makes me be a lot more exciting to watch this team play next year.
So I want to apologize. We forgot something very important. I want to issue our condolences to friend of the show, Will, aka Bias Houston, for losing Christian Wood. I know he already has the Bias Dallas account that he may be able to barter for. So we'll see how he makes his transition now that Wood is no longer here. But in all seriousness, Itamar, where were you when the Christian Wood trade happened? What are your initial thoughts on it? And take us from there.
I was very deep asleep at the time, given that it was at 4 a.m. Somehow Paulo is always awake for this type of stuff, but I'm not. So I woke up, I immediately saw my phone blowing up, I went crazy. It's funny, 1 year ago at the draft, me and Paulo were basically the only ones who were in support of trading Christian Wood already. Like, I remember watching the draft go down in the space. We will also have a space this year. And I was like, Moses Moody is still available. I would trade Christian Wood for pick 13. I don't care. Moses Moody is there. And people did not like that. And now we got pick 26, which is much worse. But it was time, man. Like, it was time. Like, he just did not fit with the current core. He did not help the current core. Even if you do think he's a great player, like, legitimately, like, new all-star level good, he clearly, like, that clearly doesn't matter to the team. They just secured the back-to-back worst record in the league. So, like, there wasn't, I don't know what the purpose of keeping Christian Wood would be. Like, there's not a long-term fit there. There's not a good locker room fit there. There's not a great on-court fit. And like Paulo said, when they're taking the ball up the court, now, obviously, he's a very good basketball player, like one of the best on the team by far, even though he's very annoying to watch sometimes, all of that. But he does have, like, there are guys who do the little things, like PJ Tucker did all of the little things. And Christian Wood is like the complete opposite of PJ Tucker. So, like, there's taking the ball up the court, like crawling the ball up the court because it was so slow. There's the ball stopping. There's the, like Paulo said, like trying to post up and calling and taking up space. Offensive player can drive. There was the entire thing on defense, like the entirety of it. And like, you had games where, like the Warriors games this year, he was so good. He was legitimately like, this is the guy I want. This is the center I want to play against the Warriors. He was swatting Steph in isolation. He was getting bored. He was shooting threes. He was getting lobbed, like perfect. And then other games, he was just like there. And that's disappointing. But really, it was the right time. Now, the return is definitely not what we were hoping for. But still, like, I would take it. There's no long-term bad salary. So you still got like 60 million currently available next offseason, which is crazy. There's so many stuff you could do with it. Take on bench contracts, sign players, trade for players. Like, there's so many stuff you can do with the cap space. And you didn't take even anyone who will steal minutes from Sengun, from KPJ. Like, none of the guys you took will actually take minutes and you really just needed to free up minutes for Garuba, for Banchero, like was probably the third overall pick. So even though the trade, like you didn't get what you wanted, I love some prospect, but I really like it 26. But realistically, that's not a good pick. Like there's not really good NBA players at 26. If they lasted until 26, there are like some real major question with them. But still, you didn't get anything bad. You got him out. You freed up minutes, and it should have happened sooner. But it's a good trade.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up another thing before you got on, which is another thing that's really frustrating is Christian Wood with an alpha star like Luka Doncic will look like a really good player in Dallas.
Yeah.
The thing about it in Houston is it's really hard to naturally go from being the best player on a team, and especially someone as unaware as Wood is, which we can probably tell by just his interviews. It's really hard for a guy like that to be the best player on a team and have all of these rookies and then accept that all of those rookies are better than him and the offense should run through them or eventually run through them. It's a hard balance to strike as you're developing a locker room there. It's if you like Christian Wood might well be a guy that we would love to have 3 years down the line. But right now, it doesn't make sense while you're rebuilding, while you're growing your team, because he's not going to respect any of these other presences on the locker room, and like he will in Dallas with Luka there. So it might well be one of those scenarios where it was just wrong place at the wrong time. It was a bad situation, and sometimes as a rebuilding team, you've got to do those moves because you've got to move on. You know he's a great player, but sometimes it just doesn't work out. Sometimes it's not because you're bad, and it's not because you don't fit the team. It's because there's a trajectory that the team goes on as they're rebuilding, as they develop, and it's tough to manage the personalities in a way that they can fit into the roles that you eventually want them to play. And Christian Wood, what he did last season, the way he was used, the way he played, is not what he's ideally doing. Ideally, you want him to be a pick and roll, pick and pop big that's going to be able to switch onto the perimeter and play hard defense. That's something you can expect him to do with players that are clearly better than him, like Luka Doncic, can maybe drill into his mind, like if you're either doing this or you're getting benched. You being in this untouchable position in a rebuilding team where you're clearly the best player and just get to do whatever you want doesn't really help anybody. So at the end of the day, I think he'll look great in Dallas, but I struggle to see him reaching what he'll probably do in Dallas in Houston just because of what I just said.
And going back to when Christian Wood was first traded to the Rockets, right? He was, I can't remember if it was the introductory press conference or one of the second press conferences, but that was a time where we had James Harden and Russell Westbrook, and he came in and they were like, how do you see your role in the offense? And he was like, I'm going to be the second option behind Harden, just right away placing himself over Russell Westbrook. And for all the problems that Rockets fans had with Russell Westbrook while he was here and even before he was here, that's the guy who's like a surefire Hall of Famer, right? And so for Christian Wood to come in and immediately say, I'll be easily clear of Westbrook, and I think that said a lot. Maybe Christian Wood had already caught wind that Westbrook was on the way out, so maybe that was part of that. But that will stick with me for the time about the Christian Wood era. Right? Is he came in, he saw himself as a certain level in that pecking order. And then once Harden and Westbrook left, like you said, Paulo, like it was going to be very difficult for him to find himself into a role where he wasn't the first overall option type of guy. Once he ended up sitting at the last couple of games of the season, Jalen looked way better. KPJ looked really good. And I think, that may have played into the team's decision-making. We had heard going back to last trade deadline that the team was looking at deals to move him. So this wasn't, completely out of nowhere. Kelly Eco had a tweet yesterday that he expected Christian Wood to be here starting the season. And then he had another tweet today that, the writing was on the wall for a Christian Wood trade for a long time. And, I would say for me, it's closer to the second tweet that he had that the writing was on the wall for this for a minute they moved 2 picks to get Alperen Şengün, so that shows that they have a lot of belief in him as a prospect. Steven Silas and his allegiance to Christian Wood, I think it's going to be talked about. I've seen it talked about a little bit on social media already, but I don't think at the end of the day that was enough to, really give him that extension that was being talked about last week. I think, the team saw that they're going to have to take the best deal they can get for this guy, and that's what they did. Just a quick follow-up before we go into break here. Do y'all see any possibility that any of the guys that we got in this trade are, flipped for anything, even like it's like a second?
I struggle to see that. I mean, Brown had a terrible year. Trey Burke had a terrible year. Like Marcus Chris he just had surgery like yesterday, which is kind of crazy, like wild timing. And
Yeah.
Boban is like, I would keep Boban around, like why not? But like the guy produces more value with his jokes than he does on the court. So like being real here, when it's for fillers, like it's the type of trade that you do on 2K, when you try to get like 10 million and you got nothing to match salaries on 2K. So okay, I just put like 4 minimum guys, and the CPU will think that it's actually good value. So let's do it. So like it's the same type of thing. And in real life, I don't see any of them like getting anything. It's really 26 picks for Wood, and the Rockets just gotta waive them, or maybe someone would want like Boban.
I think they're all gonna get waived. I think Boban has a good chance of staying as a vet. I think that's a question mark, but as Fagan reported, I think the other 3 are pretty much gone. They're just gonna get waived. They're not gonna get playing time for us. The other thing, before we had to break, the other thing I wanted to mention, piggybacking off of what Don said about Steven Silas and his relationship with Christian Wood, I think that's a big part of the reason why I would want him to be gone, because he was here before the Harden trade. He's been one of the guys, like he's one of the only guys that's stuck with Salas through that entire time. And even before that, he was already Salas's guy. I don't think it's healthy in a rebuilding team where you're developing all of these young guys to have a guy that is clearly just coddled by the coach, especially a guy with as much flaws as Christian Wood had in his game, the not caring, the lack of discipline. Those are the type of things that you don't want to get into your locker room. You don't want to make it sound like that's acceptable. And I think Christian got away with a lot of stuff. First because he was the best player, and then because the coach liked him. And one of the things that I wanted him gone for is, it's not good to have someone who's a favorite of the coach. You kind of want the coach to be an authority presence, and you want him to keep the same rules for everyone and hold everyone to the same standard. And I don't think Christian Wood was held to the same standard. And while KPJ probably should have had been a little bit more restrained in the way he was allowed to do certain things, I think Christian Wood was a bigger issue than that. And I hope that now that we'll have pick 3, Jalen, all the rookies from last year, Jason Tate, KJ Martin, that KPJ being the only guy who's kind of seen as more of a tough personality to deal with, that the other guys can, overpower that, rather than it being your lead ball handler and your best player that's also a friend of that's also really close to the coach, being able to do whatever they wanted. So I think for cultural reasons, that this move helped the team a lot in that regard. And then, whether you want to believe it or not, it was reported by multiple people last night after the trade that agents don't like Christian Wood, that draft prospects themselves, they don't like, were reticent in wanting their agents were reticent in letting their prospects go to certain team, to the Rockets, because of Christian Wood. He has a terrible reputation around the league. We've known how he's been addressed by national media, and at a certain point, is it really worth it? Right? He would have to be a better player for it to be worth it. Those concerns, the attitude concerns, the development concerns from the coach, the on-court concerns, the defensive, the offensive on-court concerns, the defensive on-court concerns, all of that was just too much, and it reached a point where even with a low on the scale of returns that you could have gotten, I think, with pick 26, even that becomes acceptable because you're gaining so much more that isn't written down on the trade that it was just a no-brainer. And there's a reason. It's really hard to get Rocket's Twitter to agree on something. Everybody, basically, like 85% of people agree that Christian Wood needed to be gone, and that should tell you something.
Yeah, one more point I want to get for is just that you got three guys, all right? So let's use Jason Tate, Eric Gordon, and Christian Wood. The Jason Tate man is the guy he's a psycho. He's gonna go hard every time. He doesn't care if he plays for a rebuilding team, for a good team. He's gonna play his ass off. He's gonna do everything in his power to win. Is that he takes it the most seriously. And then you got Eric Gordon, he's here. He's gonna do his job. He's gonna be professional. He's gonna do whatever he's told to do, and he's gonna do it well. He's gonna be respectful. And then you got Christian Wood, who's some dudes are just not meant to go through a rebuild. Like some dudes just like if you let them you give them too much power, you give them a bad situation, they could run wild, and that like there's not something too wrong with that. It's just the fit wasn't right once Howden left. I wish the team realized it sooner, but at least they finally did. And we just gotta move on. And I do think Christian Wood in Dallas, like he's gonna look fantastic. Like playing with Luka, he's gonna average like 20 and 10 on 65 shooting, like something crazy. And he's gonna, at least in the regular season, he's gonna look excellent. And I'm already curious to see the playoffs. Like how does he play now?
All right, so that's going to do it for us for the first segment. When we come back, we're going to discuss who the Rockets should look at pick 26. So don't go anywhere. We will be right back. And continuing to our second segment here on the Launchpad podcast, we are now going to talk a little bit about who the Rockets could be interested at pick 26. So, Paulo, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's doubtful that they make this pick. I think that's something we'll get into in our next segment. But if they do keep the pick, I guess I'll start with a more fun approach to it, or more unserious approach to it, and I'll let Itamar go into some of his prospects, and then I'll give you some of my own. But would it not be hilarious, right? Hilarious if the guy we're likely to draft, it's Paul Banchero, right? And then he has his mates from Duke, Wendell Moore, 3-and-D wing, versatile connector. Wouldn't it be hilarious if they made this Christian Wood trade and Paul's agent's like, you know what, I'll ensure I'm there at 3 if y'all want me, but in exchange you draft my guy at 26 and then we get to play them together. Now this makes very little sense and there's very little substance behind it, but this is just to say one of the guys I like there is Wendell Moore. I think he can be a versatile wing. I think he can shoot a shot 40% from 3. I think he can defend. He has the length. He has athleticism. I think he has really good connector skills. He's not going to be a point guard, but he's going to be able to make some reads for you. And then he's not just your really limited 3-and-D role player. He can do some shot creation. He can. It's not a bad basketball player with good tools that would start out to defend and out to shoot. It's a guy that was a top recruit. I think he was a 5-star recruit back when Duke got him. Had an injury. He was always started to be a good prospect, good basketball player, but due to injury, he had to take a step back, and he played this role for Duke, and he did it really well. So I think he would be a nice option there if we're trying to get a role player to fill that position. If we do get Paulo, there's chemistry there. So I don't know. He's one of the guys that I've liked since the beginning of the draft, and he should probably be available around that range.
Yeah, I agree that Wendell Moore is a good get though at 26. And my guys, like to me, there are a couple of guys who might fall. So my top 3 for the pick are the players of E.J. Liddell, who I think would be a great pop, even though he kind of plays the same position as Paulo. Like he would be such a great fit. Like I usually don't like comparisons that much, but he really is similar to Grant Williams to me. And we saw this playoff that Grant Williams is very good at the playoffs. So his skill set. And other one is Nikola Jovic. I've written Nikola Jovic. I know Paulo doesn't like him that much, but I very much do. I think that even though it's archetype, maybe it's not the more type archetype, but like he's just so talented, so skilled for a 6'11" dude with his shooting, with his passing. He can just shoot over guys. I think like that's a future starter. And to me, at 23, fit or not, you gotta take that. And the other guy is Marjan Beauchamp. He actually received a green room invite, which is kind of wild to me. Like he really improved his stock so much. He's kind of similar to Tavi Eason. He's just like a little worse at everything, kind of. He's a great cutter, great finisher, incredible effort on defense, always active, great off ball. On ball defense and shooting are his main swing skills. Other than those three, I'm just going to say a couple of guys and a really short description of them. Dalen Terry is interesting. As
That's my guy.
it's,
I was gonna
yeah,
get
I know.
into.
Yeah, like imagine like Dyson Daniels, but without any scoring game. Kind of like Dyson Daniels is not known for his scoring, but like imagine if he didn't have any scoring. I feel like Dalen Terry is getting really underscussed, like in general, but lately it's been picking up. Vince Williams, I've written on. He's my guy for this draft. A very good shooter, good passer, long and great, 6'6", 7-foot wingspan. So just with that type of guy you want at free, he does like everything to be a perfect role player. And then there's also like Wendell Moore's a good option. Christian Brown, I like him as well. From Kansas, a good defender, smart, quick passer. Wendell Moore, like you said. And then maybe if the Rockets want a center or point guard, Kennedy Chandler and Christian Coloco are two names I wouldn't mind at all getting.
So a lot of guys have already been mentioned. Obviously, I'm going to throw David Roddy into the mix, just as another type of decent sized wing that I've seen a lot of people high on. I'm not crazy about Kennedy Chandler. I like guards that are a little bit taller than Kennedy Chandler, and I think the Rockets themselves are already pretty high on Daishen Nix, so I think that he's probably going to get the shot there first. If Jaden Hardy falls right now, I've seen some mocks have him in the 20s. I would be fine taking him just on the talent upside play. And, Beauchamp as well. I think Jalen Williams has risen himself out of this range. Before he could have been taken in this range, but I think unfortunately Madison Moore on Rockets Twitter has gassed him up a little too much, so I think he's not going to be available at this point. But those are some names I'd be looking at. Patrick Baldwin, just on like a crazy swing, maybe, but did not have a great year. They dropped that the top rankings by stats. ESPN did, or based on analytics, and somehow he ended up in the top 10 of that. I'm not sure how that happened. I think
I think it includes pre-college career
in AAU stats or something along those lines. But I mean, the shooting in theory was going to be good. Didn't look that great at Milwaukee, but a guy that came
nothing looked great at Milwaukee for that guy.
Yeah, but that would probably be the if you want to take one crazy type of swing, that would probably be the guy.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna expand a little bit on Dalen Terry, right? I think so. Why do I like him? And it's been called out multiple times on Twitter, and I agree. I can tell myself why I'm so high on him. It's because if you built a point guard in a lab to be an off-ball point guard, to play next to star shooting guard or star forward, I think Dalen Terry at a very raw level would probably be it. This is a guy who has it's a work in progress jump shot, right? But it still was a 36% jump shot on 2 attempts at college. So if it's going in, you can't really complain that much. He's someone who will be really smart at making decisions of advantages created by other guys. So if you got Paulo and Jalen being threats on the ball, he's going to be able to take those advantages that they create, and he's going to make the right pass, or going to shoot, or he's going to attack a closeout really well. He's got great mobility. I think he'll be a good defender. He's got the size. He's a 6'7" point guard. That's not really a true point guard, but this off-ball type of point guard. He's got a 7 foot, almost 7'1" wingspan. He's 19 years old. Come draft night, he'll be 20 by the start of the season, but he's 19 years old come draft night. So he has some upside as well. And I just really like him as an option for the Rockets, as someone who they might not give playing time day one. If they like Daishen Nix, they can play Daishen Nix, but who will be able to develop in the G League with Coach, not Coach Mohamed, Abdul Fattah anymore, but our G League system is known to be really good at developing players. So he just seems like a really cool archetype that we could just send to the G League, since we're going to struggle to play all of these guys, and a really good player could come from that. And I think it's rare to have players who play this kind of role, especially coming out of the draft, because usually guys want to be like stars, right? And then you're usually drafting a guy who has talent to be more, and slotting him into a role. I think having someone who already played this role in college and did it really well next to Benedict Mathurin would be really interesting. And then, other than that, like, you could take a swing at Jaden Hardy, although I hate the fit, and I don't know how he would get minutes for us. You could take a swing on him. You could, if you get Tariq at 17 and you get Marion Beauchamp at 26, you could assemble
that would
all of
be
the Seattle boys,
best
Rafael
draft of
Stone.
all time.
Yep.
Best draft of all time.
Just full vibes, Rafael Stone, KPJ's from Seattle, Paulo's from Seattle, Tariq from Seattle, Marion Beauchamp's from Seattle as well. You could just assemble the Seattle Supersonics before they come into the NBA. But on a serious note, protected 3-and-D wing, really good defender, work in progress jump shot, still really young at almost 21. So I like him as well. And then just looking at this list, right? I kind of don't want to draft, like Don said, like I like Kennedy Chandler, but I kind of don't want to draft another short guard. I don't know. It's man, I like him, but if they're invested on Knicks, he seems like he's going to be one of the best players available at 26. But I'm not sure if I'd be on board with taking him. Although, if you are sending him to the G League anyways, he could be a nice bet as well. But yeah, man, just give me Dylan Terry or Marion Beauchamp or Wendell Moore.
Yeah.
Those are my three favorites.
The way I look at it with Dalen Terry is that I personally am I'm like the lowest person on Dyson Daniels in draft Tutor. Like I still having lottery, but I'm just too worried about a player who's not gonna be able to like play point guard. I don't think he's that good at creating advantages. And then the shooting, like if you're gonna be an off-ball player and I don't like your shooting, I don't know, man. Like I can't draft you top 10. That's not how I view things, So if you like Dyson Daniels though, and most people do, I don't know how Dalen Terry is not in your top 20. Like Dalen Terry, I like his defense just as much as Daniels, his playmaking just as much as Daniels. Like oh my god, Dalen Terry is probably the best guard defender in the draft. He's an elite passer. I am just more pessimistic on the shooting because he really did not shoot unless he was wide the heck open. He did not shoot any threes, and his form is kind of odd. So I don't know how much I trust the shooting there, which is why I don't have him top 20 myself. But if you do like Dyson Daniels, I don't get why you're not like also high on Dalen Terry. But the way I approach things with a pick that late in the first round is that look, 90% of the players that are going to be in real consideration for the 26th pick are not going to be NBA players out of the league in 2 to 3 years because that range we're talking about. So I want to get the guy who I trust most to be a real player. Like I don't really want an upsized wing at 26 because if he is at 26, the upsized wing is probably not very good. Like it doesn't have a high likelihood of actually converting on that upside. So like give me Vince Williams, who I trust to be good. Give me EJ Liddell, give me Benjamin Beauchamp, like Christian Brown, Wendell Moore even. Like give me some of those older players maybe, but the players who I trust the translation, I trust them to be NBA players. Like Kennedy Chandler, he's young, but I trust him fully to be like a 5V at the very least backup point guard. Like I really like his defense, his passing, he's so smart. Like even though the fit is not great, like if I thought Kennedy Chandler was like the best player on the board, the guy with the best chances that of really staying in the league for like 10 years, I would take Kennedy Chandler because at pick 26, if you get anything for pick 26, it's going to be great. So I wouldn't be too picky. Like if I can get you and I believe in you that you're going to be good, I'm not trying to overthink it.
Paulo, do you have anything to follow up on that, or can I take this?
Yeah, so based on what you just said, this is exactly why we should not take Nikola Jovic, because he's gonna get exposed in the playoffs and he's not gonna be good enough.
But I think he is like really easy. Like I trust Jovic a lot. Like the part of the reason I have him like late lottery kind of like around that range is that I think he's too skilled like to not like Ousmane Dieng as well. Like Ousmane Dieng is extremely raw. Jovic is also like not maybe the most NBA ready. But I see the passing, I see the shooting in there, I see the
What about
processing
the
of the
defense?
game. Yeah, I think his on ball is going to be fine on defense. I swear to God, like, on ball he's fine. Like off ball, I mean, closing out is I don't know how you can be so bad at closing out.
I think he's
But
gonna
on
have
ball,
to be hidden, and I don't want to be hiding role players. I don't know. I'm just really low on Jovic. I know a lot of guys
yeah, I
are
get
high
it.
on
I
him.
just think like Laurie Marken is a starter, and he's not a great defender, but he's a starter because he can shoot and he's like really good offensively. So I know that's not the sexiest mold. Nobody
He's a
goes to the
starter
draft and says,
on
"Man,
a
I
team that
want
lost
Laurie
in the
Marken,"
play-in.
but we
I also
think
think
will
he's
be
a
as good.
starter. I also think he's a starter on a team that has Mobley and Allen to kind of back him up at the rim, and I
Yeah,
don't
I
think
think
we're
it's
going
gonna
to
be
have
better
that
though.
type of
Like
rim protection with Şengün and Banchero.
yeah, Gallinari, like say Danilo Gallinari, like he may not be the shooter, but he's a much better passer than Gallinari. So like to me, it's also his level of dominance in the under-19 World Cup tournament he was like a top 5 player in the tournament. The first team was Victor Wembanyama, Chet Holmgren, Jalen Ivey, Zach Edey, because shout out to Zach Edey, and then you got Nikola Jovic. Like I think he's so good already, and he's like he really prepared himself from the NBA like with his move, like nobody in the draft got a step back like him, like that already, that efficient, like on step backs. I don't think anyone like got like the specifics of the NBA type thing. Like I think he's ready there. So yeah, yes, his archetype is not sexy, but like unless if I think he's the best player, like Jovic is too talented. That's how I see it.
I think just to kind of round this out, I think for me the reason I would like an upside swing at 26 is because we have these three guys we're going to waive. We have KJ, Tate, Usman. Those guys are all basically going to be playing behind Şengün and Banchero. If we are going to start Eric Gordon at the 3, they're going to be behind him as well. And so, taking a guy if you took a guy who was, ready to play, I think then you're going to kind of feel the need to put that guy on the court more so than if you take a high upside swing guy and you can just kind of stash them in the G League and let them really develop there. Because I don't think there's going to be that many development minutes for wings, but at the same time, I really want more wings. I think, having 4 picks last year and 4 picks this year, most teams are running a 7 to 9 man rotation. Plus, we already have Jayshawn Tate, KJ, and Eric Gordon. So you're already looking at 10 guys right there that you're going to be trying to get minutes for, plus KPJ as well. So I just think that if we end up taking someone at that 26 position, that's the reason that I would want an upside play guy, just not necessarily like a Euro stash guy, but maybe like a G League stash guy. And taking a guy that can impact immediately, in theory, I have no problems with that. I think I would prefer to do that in a draft like kind of later on down the line where we're more ready to have someone come in and make an immediate impact. Because I think next year we're still going to be trying to get someone else at the top of the draft more so than, make a play and push. But, one of the things that could happen with those picks is instead of drafting them, we end up combining them for something else. So we're going to go to break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about things that the Rockets could do if they tried to package those picks and move up. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. And continuing to our final segment here on the Launchpad podcast, we're going to talk a little bit about potential trade-up scenarios with pick 26, pick 17, as well as Jayshawn Tate and possibly Eric Gordon, as well as other guys on the roster. Itamar, let's go to you first this time. What would you be willing to give up in a move-up scenario? What pick would you be targeting, and what player would you be targeting at that pick? Let's start there.
Yeah, to me, it's all about the players. Like the Rockets, like you said in the previous segment, we have so many guys already. We are trying to invest in, we're trying to develop. We can't really bring in all these rookies. really struggle to see the Rockets after they just brought in four rookies, didn't play the third one at all until April. Like when Jacob was on in the rotation because he really impressed. I can see them going through the same things again. So to me, it really is time to trade up, try and get as good as a prospect as you can with your second pick, and you don't really need 3 rookies like that. Like maybe sign an undrafted dude playing in the G League, but you don't really need more than 2. I don't feel like that's so. Just focus on getting the best 2. So for me, I would be willing to give up a lot, like a lot, to get Jalen Duren. If we do get Paolo Banchero, I think you need a guy who's going to be a strong defensive prospect with him and a great finisher at the basket. And Jalen Duren is the second best center in this class by far for me. And I really like him as it comes to just being like Robert Williams good, at least. And I know Robert Williams isn't a sexy name, but let's keep it to be like every year you get these crazy comps. You get it. Like I saw AJ Griffin being called Jimmy Butler with a free ball. Man, Jimmy Butler with a free ball. So like, let's be real here. If you knew Robert Williams is in this draft, you would take him really high because he's a good starter, and good starters aren't that easy to find. So to me, Jalen Duren is so athletic, so switchable, is smart. Like I would really try to target him. In addition to him, I would try and get AJ Griffin. I still am not still sure about AJ. Like every day I keep thinking about, like, he had a really low usage role. He wasn't really effective as a creator. But then again, he's an historic level shooter, at least as a prospect. So I would target AJ Griffin, get his shooting, his length, his strength. Like that's a good player. Like that's a good starter right there, the way I see it. So I would try and target AJ Griffin. I think like that's your 3 right there for the future. So if you can secure your long-term center or long-term small forward, that's what I would go for. When it comes to picks, like look, like if one of them falls to 11, then it would look like I'm overpaying like crazy for 11. But realistically, I'm not trading for the pick. I'm trading for the player I want to draft. So if I think Jalen Duren should go in the top 6, and Jalen Duren is at 11, so I would be willing to give like the same value as I would trade for pick 6, because realistically, it doesn't matter which pick you draft in the player with. It matters the player.
It's the same process that they used with Sengun last year. They thought he was a high lottery talent. That's
yeah, exactly.
2 picks for 16, which in a vacuum doesn't look great. But when you see that's the guy you wanted.
Yeah, exactly. They had him top 10, so that's very justifiable. So I would definitely trade 17, 26, and I would consider adding Eric Gordon or Jayshawn Tate. Like it depends where. Like if it's the 7th pick, for example. Like I know I said, but with that being said, the team with the 7th pick, the Blazers won't ask for the same stuff as the Knicks with the 11th pick. So it depends on what's available, what's like who's on the board, what do they want. But I would be trying to use Eric Gordon or Jayshawn Tate to get up there to draft them if I must. I wouldn't be overly happy about it, but man, like in 5 years we can look back and make, like, if you really think he's the long-term starting center or starting small forward, you could look back and imagine if we didn't trade Jayshawn Tate to get AJ Griffin. Imagine if we kept Zayus, like I don't know about Zayus Smith. Like imagine if the Sixers kept like Thaddeus Young. I know the timeline doesn't allow him, but like stay with me here. Imagine if they kept Thaddeus Young instead of like trading for Mikal Bridges in the, like imagine where would they be right now? Even though Thaddeus Young was good when he was a Sixer. Okay, I know the timeline doesn't match, but I'm improvising here. So give me a sec. So if you really believe in the prospect, you should make a great effort to get a prospect. So I would be willing to trade like 17, 26, Eric Gordon and Jayshawn if it came down to it to get a guy.
Yeah, I think you touched on. I agree with what you said about giving up more assets because you want the prospect, not the pick. It doesn't matter where you're picking them if you believe they should have been picked higher. I guess I'll approach the question a different way then. I think that there's a lot of teams trying to move down. It's been rumored that the Kings are trying to move down. That's probably too high for the Rockets. It's been rumored that the Blazers are trying to move down. That's probably also too high for the Rockets. It's been rumored that the Pelicans are trying to move down. that might be too high for the Rockets depending on what they want. Then you've got the Spurs that have not been rumored as much. Then you've got the Washington Wizards at 10. If Tyson Daniels doesn't fall, you've got the Knicks at 11. You've got the Hornets at 13, which means if everybody is okay with moving down, then people trying to move up are going to get good deals. And so knowing that, I think there's a good chance, and we know that the Rockets were trying to move up. I think there's a good chance that we do move up, and I think the difference in position where they didn't want to pick late this year last offseason because they didn't know if they were going to be able to trade it, and they didn't want to bring in 3 rookies. The fact that they took one now means one of two things: either Christian Wood couldn't get anything better, or they're okay, or they think they're going to be able to move the pick, right? And so knowing that they want to move up, knowing that they just took a deal that kind of proves that they're likely going to trade pick 26, I don't think 17 and 26 is enough to move up to 10, but I think it's reasonable to move up to 13 with the Hornets, for example. It might be reasonable to move up to 14 with the Cavs if your guy's still there. I think I'll be willing to include Jason Tate if we're trading all the way up to 10, like Jason pick 26, pick 17. I'd be targeting, I like Duran, as you said. If you're not at 10, or if you're at 10 and you want a big man and Duran's not there anymore, Mark Williams is another guy who I really like, has a chemistry with Paulo as well. Usman Jang would be someone that's interesting that we could also send to the G League for a year or something, or at least have him start there and develop. Someone I'm interested in. I wouldn't mind reaching for him. Not the biggest fan of AJ Griffin, as y'all know. I have real concerns about the defense, and I don't see the upside being enough to compensate for those defensive concerns. Now the tools are there. Was it the lack of focus? What was it? I like Sohan, but once again, one of those guys that will he really be able to stay in the league if he can't develop a shot? But there's a lot. I think there's a clear gap, and there's a clear new tier if you get to 10 or 13 or 11. And it's really likely that one of the guys, like in every draft, there's reaches. It never goes chalk all the way in the entire lottery. So if you can get into the lottery, you're like one of these guys that we think are unreachable. There's a very good possibility that they fall all the way back to one of those picks. And being in a position to get one of those guys that fall is really important. Another thing that I would mention is 2 other possibilities. We could just trade one of the picks for a future pick, kind of like the Thunder just did with the Nuggets. And another low-key possibility is we could still trade up from 3. If we like someone in specific, which we don't know, we know we like Paulo, but we apparently haven't even had workouts with the other guys. If we think Orlando takes Paulo at 1 or something like that, and they're on the fence, right? And there's been rumors that Chet has a promise from OKC that his agent wants him to go to OKC. So if you're in that dynamic that Chet's going to, no matter what, and Orlando is indecisive between Paulo and Jabari, and you value Paulo above Jabari, and Orlando doesn't, then that could be a scenario where you're trading 3 plus 26 for pick 1, and it's a case of, well, Orlando was fine with either one, so we'll just extract one extra pick out of the deal and maybe still get the guy that they want, but you get you get to be safe that you get the guy that you wanted. As Rafael Stone, that's just a possibility, right? Might happen, might not, but there's just to illustrate that there's more scenarios other than just trading up from 17.
For sure. I think for me, if they try to move up, I think 10 and 11 are the most likely. We've heard the Knicks want to trade down. We've heard the Wizards want to trade down. I don't think they're going to be able to get to 7. I think the Blazers are going to try to make a push for Jeremy Grant. I think they have to do something to try to keep Dame around. Who I would target, I do like Sohan in that spot. I would like Duran if he falls. I could see Duran going I could see Durant going around 10. Mark Williams, I would also like Mark Williams, especially considering we just got rid of Christian Wood. And then I think Eason, I don't know if I would trade up for Eason, maybe Jang. I think those are the couple of names I'm interested in there. I think Daniels will go before 10. Mathurin I would be okay with, but not my preferred pick there. And then probably not on Griffin. So just some interesting names there. I think the chance that the Rockets try to trade this up is very high. I think we talked
Probably
about
already
the Eric
have.
Gordon. Yeah. I think we talked about the Eric Gordon trade. They didn't want another pick this year. I don't think they have anything in hand right now. I think, they're exploring options. If they can't get anything done, I could definitely see them trading 26 back and just drafting out 17. It's going to be hard to roster all these guys, even if they, end up waiving everyone from the Christian Wood trade. But I think if you had to put a gun to my head and ask me if I think they're able to trade up, I think that they are able to trade up. I think, 26 and 17 is decent value. And if they stack on another, asset besides that, I think that's going to be able to get this thing across the line. Like Paulo said, with enough teams trying to trade down as it is, I think they're going to be able to find someone to take it on. The Thunder were the ones that took it on last year. I don't know if 12 is something they do again.
That they're not trading 12. They're gonna get Tatum Sharp there. It's all agreed upon. I have full faith on that.
So but I do think that 10 through 12 those are the teams that are most likely to move in my estimation, and most likely to move for what the Rockets are offering. So do y'all have any other points y'all want to get across on trade downs or trade up scenarios?
I will say just a couple of things that, first of all, you don't know how much I would trade for pick 4. Like, it's probably out of the Rockets' range. Like, again, with what they will be willing to offer. But man, if I can get Jaden Ivey on this team and Paolo Banchero, man, like I would be like, as long as your name is not Jalen Green or Paolo Banchero, you're on the block. I'm sorry, buddy. Like, I would do a lot of things to get Ivy. To me, that's just how the Rockets should be approaching things. I think they are, to be fair. Like, I think they're very actively trying to trade up. I think they definitely understand you can't have that many rookies. I feel like the Garuba season kind of show that, especially that. I mean, they believed in Garuba. They did not take a player who they did not believe in, but they just couldn't find enough minutes for him, and to keep agents happy, and to keep veterans happy, and to not sell low on the veterans. So it's really hard in between to navigate all these things. So I do think they will be active trying to trade up. I would be trying to trade up, of course, and we'll see what happens. One more possibility I do like is that if Tari Eason is not available at 17, for me Tari is by far the pick at 17. If he's available, I'm gonna be so happy because I have him 11. But if Tari Eason is not available at 17, then you probably can get a similarly good guy at 26. I don't know. Is there really a big difference there between 17 and 26 if you believe the second tier has already been cleared? And in that scenario, you can trade 2022 maybe for 2023 first. And next year's draft is crazy good. So if it's just a possibility, maybe the pick is lottery protected that you're getting. Like I saw 31 and next year's pick from Cleveland, lottery protected for 17. I would do that deal now that we have 26, as long as Starry is not available. So to me, I think the Rockets have so much flexibility now. Do all type of trades. See what Raphael Stone is up his sleeve, man. We're gonna have a fun draft night. We're gonna have a fun space there, and I'm excited.
Yeah, and I would definitely agree to that point that if you're going to try to trade back into the next season, 17 is going to be worth more than 26.
I thought you were going to agree with the space being fun. God damn it.
I will also agree with the space being fun. But, Paulo, that it's a great transition. Go ahead and tell everyone who's all going to be at that space on the draft night.
Yeah, so on draft night, live as the draft goes on, which is I think exactly a week from now. I'm trying to pull up this
A week in 6 hours.
Yeah. So basically, in a week in 6 hours, we're going to have a draft spaces with a panel of like permanent speakers with 2 rotating guest spots, right? And we're going to have myself, Andrew Sukup, Bruce Williams, Itamar, who's I'm gonna do this right here.
Close.
Nathan Fogg, Ali Kanmachani, Brado, who's Brad? Why did I say Brado? God damn it! You're at on Twitter, Brad. Why? And James Piercy from the Dream Shake and the Chop Chop as our permanent speakers. We're going to be doing it through the entire first round. And if you don't want spoilers, we're going to be a spoiler-free space. So what's going to happen is we're going to have Alan from the Chop Chop be a co-host, and what he's going to do is as his broadcast gets the picks announced, he's going to mute everybody in the space and play the audio clip live of Adam Silver announcing the pick, right? And so that's going to set pace for the entire space. You don't have to have your own stream open if you don't want to. If you want to just keep up as we go along. It was really fun last year because we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know the trades, and me and Itamar didn't have a second broadcast, so we were just getting updated by Alan via his little sound bites of Adam Silver. So that was really fun. It's a really unique experience. We have never quite ran. I mean, we've ran that space, but it's not our usual spaces format. So I think it's going to be really fun, especially knowing that the Rockets are probably going to be active, and they do have at least 2 picks, maybe 3 if they decide to make the third one. That being said, I think that's enough of Raleigh closing out here, right, Don?
Yep. That's going to do it for us. So as always, you can follow me at Don Knock. You can follow the pod at Clutch City CR in the description of the bio. Of that account. You can find the link tree that has the YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast links. Paulo, tell the people where they can find your stuff.
Yeah, y'all can find me on Twitter at Paulo Alves NBA. That's PAULOALVES NBA. Everything I do from podcasts like this one to the live shows on Twitter Spaces with fan self linked down there. Christian's gone. We're happy fans.
And Itamar, tell the people where they can find your stuff.
You can find me on Twitter at Itamar_17_10. I actually wrote about Christian Wood getting traded and the pros and cons of it just now, so you can check my perspective on it if you want.
Cool. That's going to do it for us. So until next time, be safe and go Rockets.